Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed speakers, participants joining us virtually from across the globe. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all to this session 2, technical session. In this session, we will explore critically on the intersection of education, economic growth, peace building, sustainable development, and resilience. Once again, I would like to welcome Mr. Inigo Torres. And here we have with us Professor M.S. Benjamin, Dean Faculty of Law, Chairman, Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore. I am honored to invite Mr. Inigo Torres to share his prospects on the vocational training, economic growth, peace building, and interlinkage for recovery. Before we proceed with sir, may I request Ms. Sarah Benjamin to introduce her to the audience, and we shall proceed forward. Ms. Sarah, over to you.
Good afternoon to the esteemed dignitaries, colleagues, and participants. It is my privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. Inigo Torres, a respected academic and thought leader affiliated with the CALU Institute, Madrid, Spain. His work lies at the crucial intersection of vocational training, economic growth, and peace building, particularly in fragile and post-conflict contexts. Mr. Torres has contributed significantly at the CALU Institute's mission of strengthening humanitarian education and research. His essay, When Education Leads to Peace, Building the Conditions for Recovery in Conflict and Post-Conflict Societies, explores the deep yet complex relationship between education and sustainable peace. In it, he highlights a powerful insight: while education is essential for social progress and justice, it must be embedded within larger frameworks of reform, political will, and social commitment to become a genuine foundation for peace. Drawing from global challenges and his own experience in academic and humanitarian governance, Mr. Torres urges us to reimagine education not merely as the transfer of knowledge, but as the transformative process that shapes inclusive institutions, fosters equity, and contributes to the long-term recovery in fragile societies. His scholarship bridges human development, justice, and peacemaking, his perspective invaluable to the global discourse on humanitarian learning. Today, we are honored to welcome a voice that critically examines the linkages between education, social justice, and peace building, and inspires us to rethink how knowledge can serve as a catalyst for recovery and stability. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Mr. Inigo Torres. Thank you.
Sir, over to you, the floor.
Thank you.
You may.
Thank you very much. I guess you can hear me well. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to share the panel with all of you colleagues, a great group of speakers, organizers, and also meeting virtually with students all around the world, teachers, professionals, all of you interested in the topics discussed on the role of education, of institutions as a catalyst addressing poverty, mitigating conflict in fragile state. I had the opportunity to briefly explore the impressive work being undertaken by the Mount Kenya University and also at the University of Nairobi, and also I explored the University of Mysore in India. And I'm truly impressed, and I say that very sincerely, by the breadth and quality of initiatives you are providing for students. Today, my speech will focus on the interconnections between education and peace, and in conflict settings, which has been my experience in countries where I've worked across Africa, Latin America, Asia, and including Europe, recently in Ukraine. We are actually living in an age of profound transformation, an age that perhaps for the first time in human history touches the entire world simultaneously. In the past, the crises were often regional, sometimes very local. Most of the time, they were disconnected one from the other in Europe or in Africa or in Asia or in the Americas. Today, however, our challenges are undeniably universal. Every continent is confronted with the same pressing issues. Whether we talk about the climate emergency, the demand for justice and equitable development, the quest for peace, and the struggle to shape a fairer and more effective system of global governance. The challenges are not only for the nations, but are truly global now. We gather here at a significant moment too. The United Nations just marks its 80th anniversary. These milestones invite us to look both backward and forward to reflect on the visions of those who believed in collective security and peace through cooperation, and to ask ourselves what responsibility fall upon us today. For those who dedicate our lives to education, especially to forming the leaders of the future, this responsibility is both urgent and profound. We are not only transmitters of knowledge, we are custodians of values, of critical thinking. History has long affirmed the close bond between education and progress. This is a given. This is something that we all might agree upon. Universal access to learning has been seen as a cornerstone of development, as the foundation for justice, as the great equalizer of opportunity. Remember great humanists in Asia, in other spaces, in Europe, and I'm very close to France. I think about Victor Hugo, who believed, as a very romantic person indeed, that education extended to all will eradicate social injustice and will ensure peace. That was the romantic view in the 19th century. And indeed, investment in knowledge and in human capacities has always gone hand in hand with innovation, growth, and hope. But yet, dear colleagues, we must pause to recognize that a paradox of our own time. By most measure, we are the most highly educated generation the world has ever known. Across the globe, millions of young people enter universities, professional schools, and training programs every year. And yet, despite this expansion of learning, the world remains scared by violent conflicts, persistent misery, and chronic hunger. Education has multiplied, but peace has not followed automatically. So this paradox forces us to confront an uncomfortable truth. The relation between education and peace is not automatic. If we wish to reaffirm the importance of education, especially higher education and professional education, the importance of education in building peace, we must begin by acknowledging this education alone is not enough. From my own experience, and I'm sure you will join me on that, I've seen how in both academic institutions and the arenas of politics and humanitarian governments, we always assume that building capacities is transformative by itself. Training, for example, training programs will bring about change. Projects where I've worked are designed around the number of trainings delivered, as is the sheer quantity of participants were sufficient evidence of transformation. But education is not magic. Training a certain percentage of people, for example, on gender issues, do not in itself create a more equitable society. Just as training people in water and sanitation does not by itself improve the quality of the water. Education is a necessary condition, but it's never a sufficient one. Knowledge must be embedded within a broader framework of action, a structural reform of political will and of social commitment. And my claim here is that we lead as from the academia, from the practitioners, we lead this framework. Awareness about water purification, for example, is meaningless if it is not accompanied by investment in safe distribution of storage. In the same way, awareness about peace, justice, or equality cannot yield results if it is not supported by institutions, policies, and systems that turn knowledge into reality. This is why we are here today. We are here today to reflect critically on the relationships between education and peace, to celebrate power of learning, but also to interrogate its limits, to ask ourselves, what else must education do to become a true foundation for peace? And do we ensure that education does not only illuminate minds, but also transform societies and contribute to a better world? The stakes could not be higher because if the link between education and peace is left unquestioned, we risk complacency. But if we explore it honestly, then we can begin to shape strategies that make education not just as a promise, but a genuine pathway to a more just and peaceful world. This precisely is the purpose of our gathering and of our conference. And this is where I would like to focus today on this discussion. I will try to allow some time for discussions at the end of the speech. Of course, none of this is entirely new. All of us here have long been engaged in the effort to make our teaching more meaningful, to bridge our curricula with what students truly need in order not only to succeed academically, but to transform, to grow into individuals who use knowledge responsibly and positively in the service of humanity. As academic, we all have supervised thesis and final research project, striving to support our students in the most decisive stage of their intellectual journey. We have all sat through countless meetings with colleagues debating how to adapt our content, how to improve our formats, how to respond to pressing issues, and how to do our work better to have a better impact. And yet, as I mentioned earlier, my experience has not always been entirely positive. Too often our efforts stop short. And so we ask ourselves as professors, as scholars, how can we go beyond this training approach, this 1 hour speech and then that's it? How can we ensure that teaching is not merely the transfer of skills, but is also a catalyst for transformation in the society? And also, this is a question for the students and for professionals. The question is equally pressing. How can we go beyond investing time in our own human and professional development? And how can learning become not only a personal asset, but a tool for my success and a contribution to improve my toolkit? My toolkit to what? My toolkit to do the job, to be a good person, to be a happy person, to feed my family, to work with my community, and not to fight with my neighbors. to understand them. Acknowledging this challenge is essential first step toward doing better. Only by naming the gap between what we aspire to and what we actually achieve, we can begin to close it and to ensure education in all its form truly serves the cause of peace. Let me share with you concrete examples and some main points that I think go in that direction to succeed. My first thinking when I was preparing this conference is that we should align learning with the real needs. I know that we constantly assess curricula to ensure they equip students not only for jobs, but for life, complementing theory with mentorship, coaching, and partnerships across society with the private sector, with local authorities, with civil society organizations. I had the chance to work very recently in Ukraine. And I was in charge, among some issues on human rights, related to human rights, I was in charge of capacity development of the civil society organizations in issues like human rights, but also in management of projects meant to improve MHPSS, mental health, psychological support, project aimed to improve shelters, etc. The education in Ukraine has been devastated by the armed conflict. Most of the universities located in the front lines have been destroyed, physically destroyed. Teachers have been killed or displaced. Students have been killed or displaced, or they were called to join the army in the fight of the nation to survive. All the life in Ukraine, educational life, has been disrupted. And yet, in Ukraine, as it happens in most of the countries affected by conflict, the education community stands up and say, we should continue doing our important task for the community. And this is where I get to support through different programs. And I had the chance to meet very valuable professionals that they were thinking on how we can improve. And one of the most immediate response was, let's strengthen capacities. And by strengthening capacities, most of the time equal let's do trainings, massive trainings, and tons of trainings that were identified. And I said, and this happened I will share the experience in another country. I said, this is not going to work. No matter how many, the number of people you train in 2 days, 3 days, this is not going to work. We have to ensure that the trainings are part of a strategy of transformation through education, through capacity development. Let's bring on the table and around the trainings other initiatives that can make sure that the trainings and that initiatives are really transformative and are really providing the tools for the professionals, for the students, for the leaders, middle managers that they require. And we created a system that was very interesting and worked very well, where each training was accompanied by an investment of time in coaching services for each one of the participants or the organizations, mentoring for the participants, coaching, work with the transformation of the organization that has provided work in the training, and an amount of assets that were related to the training they have engaged with. And of course, a practical part that was associated with the private sector, where the students could directly put into practice everything they have learned in the training. So this, even if not all the actors, they were the same, they were not all the responsible, we wanted to make sure that it was a package, that all these initiatives, they were not part of individual vectors of different projects, but it was a truly strategy of the society to engage with capacity development packages that will be very transformative. At the same time, a second vector to ensure that education is connected with peace and with prevention of conflict is mainstreaming values such as human dignity, conflict resolution, sustainability, and equity embedded across every discipline, not limited to the social sciences. Too often these dimensions are missing from our education systems. And I've seen that in Spain, in my own country, where we focus very much on strengthening students that have very added value in technological sectors, in science, even in humanity, but we don't think about strengthening citizens that ensure that the values of our society has achieved are preserved over time. So those values that we achieve in peacetime are not understood by the students and are not understood by the education system because they are provided as a given, and then they're not valued, and then they're not used, and then they become useless. We should not aspire to build a society of right holders alone, but also as citizens who embrace their responsibilities. And this is something we have worked also in many contexts across Africa, where and particularly in Western Africa, I've been working in projects in education, and these issues pop up that we were only bringing right holders' perspective, but not duty bearers' perspective. And if we want to to have a fair society, we have also to understand that we are part of the equation and that we are also an actor of transformation, meaning not a subject of rights, but also a holders of obligations. And this is something that our educational system are lacking. And I will advocate today to strengthen that part. Our third point would be make learning experiential, connect classrooms with communities through service, internships, fieldwork. Let students practice empathy, responsibility, and problem solving with the communities. In this regard, I have a beautiful example in Namibia, Southern Africa, where I work in a project rural development project to support a community. One of the main important parts of the project was about building houses, but also building school. And of course, not about building the school itself like infrastructure, but building education for this community. And at that time, and still the case, there are lots of tensions, racial tensions in Namibia and in southern countries. At that time, it was just after the apartheid. I'm talking about, I think it was probably in 99. Namibia had independence in 91. So it was very recent. And we were working with communities in areas that were surrounded by farmers, were mostly white farmers in the area called commercial farms. And we thought about connecting this school with the environment. And we came up with the idea that through the school feeding program we had, we could work on, instead of asking the commercial farmers or a company to bring the food to the school, we decided to have an alliance and a strategic partnership with the companies. And the companies, they teach us, they teach the participants, these communities of hundreds of families, in the ones who were interested and they have this vocational interest in food security issues, in gardening, and they participated in the green gardens for that ultimately were feeding the school, and actually were providing vegetables to this company that was distributing these vegetables to the schools. And through connecting white educators, owners of companies, owners of farms, with the communities, with increasing the capacities of these communities, we really achieved a great example that was actually a pilot for other projects of integration of the educational system into the whole community. I will talk about a similar example in Colombia, in areas affected by armed conflict, in areas controlled by illegal armed groups. We have the same experience, but here I will strengthen a fourth point. It's about empower educators and the school and universities. If we achieve the objective not to let educators to work on their own and to not to work in isolation from the academia, we can regain the respect that we should have in the society, from all the sectors, the private sectors, the government, and the communities. And we work on that in Colombia, I remember. We keep the professors to be strengthened with projects that were aimed at supporting them and their safety, their security, their conditions, the working conditions, but the school conditions, and equip them with tools to be facilitators of dialogue, on role models of integrity, not just transmitters of information. A project that we call Schools for Peace. And through that project that connected the school and the professors to the communities, we achieved something that was very unique, is that we achieved the school becoming a safe place of protection for the areas where this was happening. And it was not only schools, but it was also vocational, institutional, and we even identified that teachers that were very often targeted and killed, they were gaining respect from the community, and the community was protecting them, and by protecting them, the armed groups, they respected them more. So that was interesting also example that I've seen in Colombia. Another point would be cultivate global citizenship. This is something that I've seen that your universities are doing, promoting exchanges, physically and virtual. We are now talking with dozens of students, professionals around the globe. Those initiatives expose the students to diverse cultures, to diverse worldviews, and allow us to understand the other. And this is the seed of peace. Instead, the new technologies, as you are doing from the University of Mysore, and also the universities in Kenya and in Nairobi, and you are using this to give the chance to the students that probably cannot physically travel to other countries to meet these other views, other realities, and this is absolutely enriching the experience, and this is absolutely contributing to cultivate global citizenship, which is also a key factor of success to make university a pole of development for peace. That would be my sixth point, and I'm going to finish very soon. We should redefine success. In my view, we have to go beyond counting diplomas and publications. We have to ask, are we forming graduates who contribute to more just, peaceful, and sustainable societies? How this diploma is going to have recognition of that? How can we integrate that in the success definition of our universities? Is it about grades? Is it about impact? It's a difficult one, but I think the question's worth a reflection. Another point that I was mentioning early, and I think we can do more, or from my experience, I should have done more, is engaging with society. Building bridges with NGOs, businesses, private sectors, local communities, local authorities. That is ensuring that knowledge informs action and policy. It's not only about respecting the rules. It's about how we can influence the ones who are deciding in the society through our educational vector. And I think we are not valuing enough the capacity we have as the educational sector, particularly in universities, the influence we can have in authorities in polishing the policies. I been reading a lot about this in Israel. Critically, some universities are thinking how they can contribute to build peace environments for the generation in Israel and in Palestine. How the educational system can contribute to shape the policies of governments so that a conflict is not a constant factor in the equation of the countries such as Israel. And I invite you to read more about this because it's an interesting path of reflection. And I think it's very valid for all of societies that are suffering or are in the verge of tensions and conflict tensions. What is our role to shape policies? And I think we have a much higher responsibility on that the one that we assume at the moment. The eighth point, and I assure you, I don't have 800. I have only a couple of them more, and then I will give the floor for conversation. The eighth point is champion inclusion. Guarantee that access to higher education is not a privilege, because this will mean that we are supporting historically excluded parts of the society. So we have to make the effort to not replicate exclusion, because this will be the way that peace is truly for all, and peace is going to root into our societies. When as an educational system, particularly in university, we break the exclusions and we make the effort to integrate into our university not only the leaders of yesterday, but the leaders of tomorrow. And this is what we should envision when we are working, in my view, in this sector. And I will give you an example also on how important is to include people, I mean, all the sectors of the societies in school education. We know that. But I wanted to give you an example that has impacted me a lot in school feeding programs with the World Food Program. A few years ago, when I started working in this field, the WFP was measuring the success of the school feeding programs, measuring the success. We're talking about primary and secondary school, the success of these school feeding programs in terms of nutritional and food security parameters. If we are providing food for the school, this is to feed the students so they are in good shape, and also we reduce malnutrition that is affecting the societies where we were working in, and that's an important contribution. School feeding programs were a key stone in the World Food Program strategies in most of the countries where they had malnourishment. Then they realized it wasn't working. That through school feeding programs, they were not achieving the nutritional improvements that they were expecting. So at some point they were like, okay, if this is not working and it's very costly and it's difficult to be sustainable because it requires a big investment from authorities and from donors, and if it doesn't have an impact, nutritional impact, let's stop it. And this is what they did in some countries. But then they realized, this is the important part, that the school feeding program had nothing to do, the important impacts, they were nothing to do with the nutrition of the students. It was more about the providing importance of the schools for the communities. It was about attracting the school students to the school. And by attracting the students to the school, we were dramatically reducing the numbers of unassistance of the pupils in schools. And it was interesting because by doing this, it means that girls and boys were going to school. They were going for because their parents, they were saying, you have to go because they are going to feed you. So that was good. They were not improving their nutritional status, but they were going to school. And by going to school, the girls were not, they were being educated, and they were not doing other negative coping activities that are outside of school, like working in the fields, or even more harming strategies or activities that girls, minors can do at all age, youth, and early age of girls. The same goes with boys. Boys were going to school, and by going to school, they were not only having food, but they having education, but also they were not doing what they were doing out of the school, which means they were not joining on groups. They were not joining illegal gangs, doing negative coping mechanisms. They were not emigrating. They were having a sense, a normal sense of their lives in the schools, and preparing them to be a better adult, and having a normal childhood. So the school is a space of inclusions in many ways. And by doing this effort, we can find the same examples in universities. By bringing youth to universities, by allowing them access, finding the ways, we will not only provide them education and the tools to be a better person, but we will avoid them to be attracted, to be caught in negative activities that actually are going to make this society not being able to develop in peace. So that's the impacts of the educational system are high, and we should try to measure all of them. I want to finish the ideas I'm sharing with you with another bullet point. Another idea is that I think we should, universities and students who participate in universities and in vocational training, we should be, I will pedantically call it, a laboratory of possibility. We should inspire hope. We should show to new generation that the responsibility that we have by assisting, by integrating this training, this course, this grade, is a value we take very seriously. This responsibility is that peace is not a utopia, but it's a project. One, the teachers and the students can help build. So let me finish by saying that, in short, even in the most difficult settings, if we choose to see academia beyond academia, the school beyond the school, the student beyond the student, we can rediscover the true purpose of education. Education is not only about knowledge, it's about shaping citizens who can carry forward dignity, justice, and peace in our societies. It's about linking learning with development and development with humanity. The responsibility to nurture this vision rests with all of us, with the teachers, leaders, policymakers, and communities alike. Let us not delay. Let us work on that direction. I know you are. But the time is now. We have to act now, so that education may become the bridge between what the world is today and what it has the potential to be tomorrow. And I see that potential is very positive, but we have to see the sign of the warning lights, and we have to work on the direction to make education important again for our society and to be a transformative, to achieve a transformative role. Thank you very much. I will stop here my speech and sharing these thoughts. I hope have been interesting, and I don't know if there is any comment, any other intervention. I would be happy to hear you if there is any question as well. I can answer any question if there is on the floor. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your wonderful speech. I'm looking some questions from audience. If there is any question addressed to Mr. Torres. It is to the participants. Do you have any questions? If you don't have, we shall move forward. Right, seeing none, we shall proceed. Next, I would like to call upon Ms. Anna Orgaiti to speak on the knowledge in action and developing frontline workers' capacity where it matters most. So before we proceed with ma'am, I would like to request Ms. Sarah Benjamin to introduce ma'am to the audience, then we shall proceed further. Ms. Sarah, over to you.
It is my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Ms. Anna Argoiti, an accomplished humanitarian professional associated with the Calu Institute, Madrid, Spain. With extensive global experience, she has been at the forefront of developing frontline workers' capacity in fragile and crisis-affected contexts. Her work emphasizes the principle of knowledge in action, ensuring that education and training are not abstract but practical, context driven, and directly linked to the needs of humanitarian operations. Through her leadership, training initiatives have empowered thousands of frontline workers across Africa, Latin America, and Asia with the skills of confidence and ethical grounding needed to act effectively in high-stakes environment. Ms. Argoiti's approach is built on three vital pillars: professional education as a driver of recovery and social cohesion, knowledge sharing as a tool for empowerment, and integrated service management to improve response quality and prevent new crises. Her efforts show us that when frontline workers are well trained, communities recover faster, services are more effective, and humanitarian values are preserved. She has also led initiatives linking vocational training with green entrepreneurship, advancing both economic recovery and environmental sustainability in regions like Honduras and Ecuador. By integrating renewable energy, sustainable agriculture, and circular economy practices, these programs illustrate how training can build not only resilience but also long term prosperity. Today, we are privileged to welcome a humanitarian leader whose work exemplifies the transformative power of education in times of crisis. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Ms. Anna Argoiti. Thank you.
Ma'am, over to you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much for this welcome and introduction. Very warm. And thank you for the University of Missouri for organizing this and inviting Kalu to have the opportunity to talk about 4 different topics related to the role of education as a change maker in the current world. Before starting, because as you know, my my speech is around knowledge in action, developing frontline workers' capacities where it matters most. And it's very funny because I didn't coordinate with Inigo, but how Inigo ended his speech, it was a way in which I wanted to start mine. And Inigo said, education is not only knowledge, it's also building justice, building peace, that at the end this will take us to the value, to enhance the value of humanity, and how education has this transformative role. Well, this is what I have been trying to do all my professional life since I joined the humanitarian sector back in the 90s. And I think that in the current situation, how the world is today, how things are evolving, all the things we are living today, I think that frontline capacity matters much more now than ever. At the same time, it's a bit contradictory, no? That we white people from the north are the ones talking about this, no? Because as you are going to see, my presentation is going to try to put in value the empowerment of the local community, the local people, the frontline workers, the first responders, which are most of the time the communities themselves before the humanitarians arrive, no? So, I mean, let's live together, let's embrace together these kind of contradictions, and let's go for it. So, for me, there are today, it's something we cannot deny, all the stakes we have, no? How marginalization is increasing in many countries, poverty, famine, even man-made, human-made famine, all the conflicts, the forgotten ones and the broadcasted ones, and how training, for me, is still, and I want to believe this, that training, developing capacities is a key factor in reducing risks and mitigating the impact of disasters, both when we are talking about man-made disasters or disasters that we can maybe not avoid, but we can reduce the risk and mitigate the impact. In humanitarian settings, it's true that the margin for error is very small. I mean, how well the people responding to the emergencies, conflict or disaster are, how these people is prepared is going to be a key factor on the future life of the people affected by those crises. This can be the difference between surviving or not. So I think that with this presentation, I will try to explore how professional education and contextualized training, grounded in real field experience, can transform humanitarian response and recovery efforts. And I would like to start with one of my preferred quotes around education. This is a sentence that is, well, my kids are already adult people, but when they were kids in the school in which they attended, it was a public school in a village outside Madrid in Spain. And the kids painted this sentence, of course in Spanish, not in English, on the external walls of the school. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, by Nelson Mandela. And I think that this is very linked to the topic that we are dealing with today, no? The power of professional education, education as a driver for recovery and social cohesion. Inigo tackled a lot upon this social cohesion thing on his presentation. And also to go for the real world impact, no? How professional humanitarian education can also restore trust and build resilience among communities, no? That are usually more affected for this kind of crisis. At the heart of this approach, in which I really believe, are the humanitarian principles, the rights-based humanitarian approach. I really think that training programs should be designed not only to build technical competencies, building on this sentence of Inigo that education is not only knowledge. I will add, education is not only knowledge and skills. It's also reinforcing the principles of dignity, accountability, equity. And I really believe that if we integrate those values into everyday practice, frontline workers will become agents of change, agents of protection and empowerment. And they will be capable of navigating the challenges they will face in those fragile contexts in which they are working, with enhanced professionalism and compassion. I think this is something we should never forget, the compassion, which is not easy to translate in my language, Spanish, but I think in English, compassion encompasses many, many rights and humanitarian principles. So this will also be at the heart of all I promote as humanitarian trainer, as humanitarian professional. Let's talk a little bit about the Kalu Institute training philosophy, because it's very well grounded in humanitarian principles and values. It's very well grounded on human rights approach. And also, we do something that we consider is of high value, which is collaborate with many different actors, humanitarian actors, but also the academia, also donors, because this collaboration can also exemplify how capacity development can be strategically aligned with field realities. We try to emphasize a practical, contextual, professional learning tailored to the operational needs of different organizations working in crisis setting, disaster-prone areas, conflict zones. And the idea is to put at the center of all our collaborations the communities facing disaster, facing crisis, facing chronic poverty. Our programs in Kalu are not only theoretical exercises. Our programs are designed by humanitarian workers, frontline workers. All of us, we have been in the field. Now maybe I am a little bit old to be in the field, but I have been most of my life in the field. And when we conceive new programs, we always try to link to the fieldwork of humanitarian organizations, offering real-time support, practical solutions, very well tailored solutions that will enhance the service delivery and the community resilience of the people that attend our training programs. There are three pillars that underpin this approach. And it's not only a Kalu philosophy. I think that most of the humanitarian training institutes, they have those three pillars as a key foundation of effective humanitarian capacity building, which are professionalism, professional education. We are not beginners. We are not people who do this as a hobby. We are professionals. We also enhance and use knowledge sharing as one of the key fundamentals. And also we offer an integrated service management. And I am going to stop a little bit on each of these pillars. Okay, the first one is professional education. Again, Inigo said education is not only knowledge. I would add education is not only a tool. Education is much more than a tool. Education is a lifeline. Professional capacity development for humanitarian workers contributes to recovery by strengthening local capacities, restoring trust, and fostering inclusive service provision. By investing in the education, in the capacity development of those who serve on the front line, we lay the groundwork for long-term social cohesion and long-term stability. And I can share with you one example that you can look for it later on internet, which was the aim was to create social cohesion in post-conflict settings. maybe you have heard about this. Everything started with the Don't No Harm book by Mary B. Anderson. In this book, Mary B. Anderson was analyzing the Don't No Harm principle, how what we do as humanitarian workers can reduce the conflict tensions or can enhance the conflict tensions. And the International Federation of the Red Cross, using this Don't No Harm principle, developed the Better Programming Initiative. If you Google BPI, International Federation of the Red Cross, you will get access even to the training materials. This is a conflict-sensitive approach to humanitarian and development work that using this Don't No Harm principle into programming will help us to prevent aid from unintentionally worsening a conflict and to promote peace. And all the capacity development around this Better Programming Initiative was huge. And it contributed not only to give humanitarian workers with tools and guidance for analyzing local context, but also to understand how aid activities, humanitarian efforts, might impact the social dynamics and engage, and also this was very useful to engage communities to ensure activities will enhance resilience without exacerbating tensions. I like this approach very much because it's very people-centered approach, community-centered, and it helps the external humanitarian workers to understand very well the perspectives and needs of the affected population and to ensure their participation since the beginning of whatever is going to be done in their communities. Because they were the ones, the community were the ones analyzing those connectors and dividers and help the organizations, the humanitarian workers, to design something that was going to be a driver of recovery, create social cohesion, and promote long-term stability. Look for this, it is very interesting. The second pillar is knowledge sharing. And here we can talk about peer exchange, coaching, mentoring, community ownership. And this is very linked to the localization agenda that I'm sure you have heard about it. When humanitarian professionals share their knowledge and experiences, we are doing more than transfer skills. We are also building networks of solidarity and learning. I have no time to tell you how many people I have been working with in capacity development initiatives, face-to-face, online. In my kids counted the other day, I think I have been working on around 80 to 90 countries all around the world. So you cannot imagine the networks of solidarity and learning I still have actives, and I still feed, and I still try to keep alive, okay? Because for me, knowledge sharing, experience sharing, for me, is the best way of learning for adults. So peer-to-peer exchange, mentoring, problem solving, all this is super useful for frontliners, but also for communities, to empower communities to take ownership of their own recovery and resilience strategies. This is a sort of democratization of the knowledge, and this is key for sustainable impact. And as I said, this is at the center of the localization agenda that was promoted by the Grand Bargain. And in humanitarian context, knowledge is not just a resource. So imagine how many things are we telling about knowledge, no? Inigo, education is not only a knowledge. Now I am saying knowledge is not only a resource. Knowledge, information is a form of power. When frontline workers and humanitarian professionals share their expertise, they help shifting the balance from dependency to autonomy. And this is key, and especially key in fragile settings, where local actors are often the first responders and the last line of defense. Let me stop here a little bit to deep dive on this peer learning and localization thing. because this is what the localization agenda is asking us to do. And I think it's very relevant when we talk about capacity development, is this fundamental shift, empowering local actors to be the ones leading the humanitarian response. And training and knowledge sharing are central for this transformation to happen. Capacity building is not only a one-way street. Okay, it's about co-creation. It's about thinking together solutions. It's about the local communities and the local responders recognizing their contextual expertise, and the foreigners, the externals, recognizing this local contextual expertise and building on the existing community strengths, not substituting, not imposing external ways of learning. Peer-to-peer learning also fosters mutual respect and trust. And peer-to-peer learning breaks down whatever hierarchical models we have been imposing. And I think we have to recognize that from the North, many times we have done this, and in some cases we are still doing this kind of a very vertical model of I deliver, no? I am the one who comes here to save your life, no? I think we in CALU, but all the professionals collaborating with CALU in our own professional activities, we are trying to do this, to break down this. Mentorship and coaching for me are amazing learning tools. I mean, it's these help actors to navigate complex operational challenges. These reinforce ethical and professional standards. Mentoring and coaching can also help local people to have access to knowledge and initiatives that maybe they cannot find by themselves. No, today with internet it's true that it's easier, no, but still there are a lot of things going on that not always are reaching the local, no, the local setting. Well, I could say I don't know how many things about this, no, the greater relevance of how local realities, languages, and cultural norms are used in our capacity development efforts, the sustainability, no? How those knowledge and skills will remain within the community long after we leave, no? And also the resilience, because the community will be better equipped to respond to future crises independently. Okay, so for me this is the way, and this is, I mean, the localization agenda is something that we started to talk about quite recently, but since I joined the humanitarian sector back in the 90s, this was my approach. I started with the Red Cross, and I can tell you that in the 90s, we were already using this approach. Maybe we were not using those fancy English terminology, but we were doing this. And I want to share you a personal experience. I was part of a capacity development program led by Oxfam, UK, with 2 or 3 different humanitarian training institutes, Bioforce. I see in the participant list that there are many people from Africa, and I am sure our African colleagues, they know or they have heard about Bioforce. It's a French institute, and REDAR, which is a British-based, an English-based institute. And they put together with Oxfam a program called Context. And this program was addressed for local actors, first responders. Only local workers of local NGOs could attend this program. It was a blended program with online moments and face-to-face workshops, and in between coaching sessions. So I was one of the main trainers, in this case in DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, in Goma, and also I was one of the coaches. And it was amazing. I don't know if we have, maybe among the participants, we have people who took part in this Context program. If so, I would love if you can raise your hand or put in the chat, and we can give you the floor, because this was really amazing, okay? But also in CALU, we use this approach. For instance, we supported an initiative in the Sahel in which international trainers partner with local health workers to co-develop a curriculum on emergency nutrition response. So this is possible. This is possible. Let's go for this. Let's go for this co-creation. And maybe you need to use international people when we are an added value. If we are not an added value, don't call us. Go for yourself. No, you can find locally a lot of expertise and a lot of knowledge. So this is for the second pillar, and this is something I have already mentioned. No, that and it's linked to what I said at the end. It's true at local level you find a lot of expertise, but I think that if you are able to partner with and to draw on the expertise of professionals from different organizations, donors, NGOs, Red Cross, UN, I think you can get access to more knowledge and to more initiative. But make sure that you ask these people to be grounded on your own reality, not to impose you externalities that are not going to be useful, okay? But at the same time, I would ask you to be open-minded and try new things, okay? Because there are a lot of things that we do in Latin America that with a little bit of fine-tuning, you can use in Asia, okay? So be confident, and go for this kind of external experiences too. But as I said, always grounded in your own reality. And the third pillar is about coordination and holistic response in training, okay? Training capacity development, I think, should promote this integrated service management approach, no? Because this will equip frontline workers with what they need to coordinate across sectors, anticipate risk, and respond holistically. This approach will not only improve the quality of the humanitarian response, but will also help to prevent the escalation of future crises. I think this kind of integrated approach, this mentality, fosters a culture of preparedness, adaptability, and continuous improvement. And I think that training capacity development can enable this cross-sector collaboration. For instance, when you organize capacity development activities for different actors together, bring people together, this will create a network already. So if then later on this UN participant with this local NGO participant with this international whoever, they go together and they find each other in the front line responding to the same crisis, they already have a network. They already know each other. They have been trained in the same mentality with the same approach. So coordination will happen probably naturally, okay? Again, a small personal experience that this works, and this you can find online. If you Google disaster response support services, DRSS, disaster response support services, this was an initiative that was put together in Haiti, in the Caribbean, after the 2010 earthquake. And it was a joint effort of different humanitarian training institutes to offer training and learning to support the reconstruction of the Haitian civil society, building operational capacities of humanitarian actors in Haiti, and again, with local responders. Okay, so this was not training for expatriates. This was training for Haitian people that were going to work for local international NGOs, UN, Red Cross, and this helped. And I can tell you that I was also part of this one back in 2010. And it's amazing to see how training can improve service quality and preparedness. And I have been in Haiti recently working for WFP, and I met people working in WFP that at that time they were trained through these disaster response support services. Okay, so this holistic approach, this coordination, pays well in the future. And I am coming more or less to the end. Let me share some statistics in CALU, because I also wanted to talk in general in this presentation, but also to highlight how the programs we are offering are making a tangible difference, no? In the lives of frontline workers and the community the frontline workers are serving, no? For instance, recently we did some statistics in June, and you can see, no, that we had 55 countries encompassing 52 different nationalities, and the average age is 30 years old people, and mostly our participants, our students come from in this order, I think it is Africa, Asia, Latin America, being Afghanistan and Pakistan two of the biggest applicants, no? The nationality of the huge part. If you visit our social networks in LinkedIn, in Instagram, you are going to see different people sharing their own testimonies, no? So I will invite you to read some of those, because it's it's the students saying and putting in value some of the things I have been trying to convey here today, no? The value of how principles and values, no? For instance, this participant is mentioning neutrality, honesty, independence, humanity. So it's not only the technical things we do, it's also the values that underpin all our programs. This Caroline Natwak, for instance, I invite you to see this video because she explains very well how transformative the training was for her. And this is something that I think that Inigo has mentioned a lot, and I have been trying to convey too, no? I have not mentioned the transformation thing, but I think this is underpinning all that I am sharing with you today. So the first one was more focusing on the humanitarian principles, Caroline more on the transformative impact, and Abdul Kadir will explain you how the technical skills and areas of knowledge he was able to develop. So I will invite you to go back to those testimonies and to read what they are seeing. Because I think that sharing testimonials is not to sell, okay? This is not like a publicity moment for CALU, because I don't work for CALU, for you to know. I collaborate with CALU, but I work in FAO. So, but I really believe in this approach because it is very much more online to what I have been trying to promote, no? And I think that this shows how going beyond theory will concretely and directly impact the daily work of the frontliners that goes through very well designed, principle grounded learning programs, whatever they are. If you find a learning program, you have to investigate that they escape from theory, that they are grounded on realities, and that they are underpinned by humanitarian principles and values. And one way to check this is, for instance, using standards. I don't know if you know, but in 2019, humanitarian learning standards were developed and created with the intention of ensuring the provision of quality learning for humanitarian action. So if you look for these humanitarian learning standards on internet, or if you click in the link, I think the organizers will share the presentations with you later on. You will see the different standards, so you can also check if the training programs you are going to subscribe for have been designed and conceived based on principles, but also with a commitment on doing the things well. Okay. through a process that is really putting the people, the learner at the center, and who are really online with what we are trying to promote in the humanitarian sector. And to close my speech and to check if you want to intervene or if you have experiences to share, I would be delighted if you open the microphone and you share. I think this presentation, the intention of this presentation was to call for a renewed commitment to professional humanitarian education capacity development as a cornerstone of humanitarian action. I would like to call for more investments in professional humanitarian education. Please invest in the people who are closest to the crisis. Ensure knowledge is not only accumulated, but activated where it matters most. Invite for collaboration, promote feedback, go for future engagement, and please, knowledge must be activated where it matters most. Thank you all for your interest today. I am open for discussion, for contributions, for questions.
Your photo. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your thoughtful presentation. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Victoria Fontan, who will discuss on higher education as a resilience, the case of Afghan students at the American University of Malta. Before we proceed with ma'am, I would like to request Ms. Sarah Benjamin to introduce ma'am to the audience. Sarah, over to you.
It is my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Victoria Fontan, a leading scholar and practitioner whose work bridges higher education, peace building, and resilience in fragile contexts. Professor Fontan's recent work, Higher Education as Resilience, the Case of Afghan Students at the American University of Malta, highlights the inspiring journey of Afghan students who transitioned from the American University of Afghanistan to continue their studies at the American University of Malta. Her research powerfully reframes these students not merely as refugees in need of assistance, but as active contributors to their host society. She shows how higher education can transform displacement into opportunity, creating a model where vulnerable learners gain dignity and purpose, while host societies benefit from the much needed skills in contexts like Malta, which faces both a negative unemployment rate and a growing demand for qualified professionals. Through this perspective, Professor Fontan challenges us to see education as more than an escape from crisis. Instead, as a catalyst for shared growth, social cohesion, and resilience. In our vision, universities become not only centers for learning, but bridges between communities, fostering hope and rebuilding lives across borders. Today, we are privileged to welcome a voice that combines academic depth with humanitarian impact. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Victoria Fontan. Thank you.
Thank
Over
you.
to you.
Thank you very much for this kind introduction, Sarah, and for your invitation today. I also am part of the CALU team. I'm one of the facilitators of the seminar in the humanitarian ethics. And today I'm speaking to you, addressing you both with a humanitarian learning hat, as well as my other hat, which is rector of the American University of Malta. So I'm going to take you through a journey that is coming at the crossroads between humanitarian action and higher education, and that is seeking to help students graduate not just with a degree that is going to allow them to contribute to society, but also to graduate from their condition of refugees, which to my mind is extremely important because they are only able to rebuild their future when they are able to change the narrative of their own lives. And so this presentation is going to show how higher education can help that, starting from disaster and moving into contributing to the economic sector of a society. So let me share my presentation right now. I hope that you can see everything, and here we are. So this is our beautiful campus, the American University of Malta. We are by the sea. I don't know if all of you know Malta. So Malta is the smallest country in the European Union, in the Schengen area, and it is also the only English-speaking country in the European Union. So this journey that I'm going to present to you today, again at the crossroads between humanitarian action and higher education, is really coming out of a series of incidents and occurrences, and a posture that we have all taken, both faculty and students, faculty administrators and students, a posture we've taken for the last 4 years to navigate uncertainty and take all opportunities before us in order to succeed together and to graduate our students into the ever after life of being a contributor to society. And how resilience comes not just in terms of opportunities, but also in terms of embracing the creativity that comes with opportunity. So just a few words about AUM. So this is us. You see one of our first cohorts of students graduating a couple of years ago. So the university was established in 2016. It is a liberal arts institution, so part of the American university model. Many people ask, so what's an American university? Is there a franchise? Is there a mothership somewhere? No, American university just means we're offering 4-year undergraduate degrees with a strong liberal arts foundation, which is, in French, we call it, some of you are French speakers, we call it culture générale, so a strong foundation of subjects that allow for our graduates to be functional within societies. Our learning pedagogy is student-centered, and we have a real emphasis in what we teach on critical thinking and civic engagements and global perspectives. So at AUM, at the moment, 80% of our student population is coming from conflict-affected societies, and would qualify to be refugees, and are. But again, we like to see our students as future professionals. So in numbers, right now we've got 320 students from different nationalities. What's really interesting is that in serving students from conflict-affected societies, especially this Afghan student journey and this Afghan student cohort, we have actually not just helped our students, but more importantly, the university, which was struggling to take off since 2016, before Afghan students joined AUM. And again, that's another really important element, which is the win-win opportunity that the crossroads between humanitarian action and higher education brings for everyone. It's not just, and this goes back to the presentation that was given by my predecessor and colleague, Professor Anna. It's not just a one-way street with the savior and the beneficiary, but it's really a horizontal relationship and a two-way street as a win-win. Those are some of the donors that are funding this Afghan student project. Education Above All, Qatar, funded by the Qatar Fund for Development, and also the United States, the U.S. State Department. So these are the programs that we offer. Programs that are important to lay out here because they all contribute to the needs, the economic needs of Maltese society, game development, business administration, IT, cybersecurity, all those areas that are extremely needed within the Maltese workforce. So what I'm going to present today is really education as resilience, and just a case study or how our Afghan students are becoming contributors to the Maltese employment sector, and how this is helping Malta become competitive as well within the European market. So what got me to Malta as rector of this university is really those students. We have been together. I met them at the American University of Afghanistan back in 2019. We've been together in a long journey between 2019 and 2025, when Afghanistan returned to the Taliban in 2021, we were all displaced as a community. Our campus was occupied by the Taliban on August 15th, and we all ended up in different parts of the world before we could all regroup in August 2022 in Qatar. Some of us went to Iraq, others went to the United States, others went to Kyrgyzstan. A small number of us met in Qatar again in August 22. And as we met there, what was really, what came as an acute issue to that particular student body is that it was only temporary. Temporary because there is no long-term immigration pathway in Qatar. And so as our students reached Qatar in 22, what was understood was that it was a temporary solution, but they had nowhere else to go. And that became a weight on everybody's mind, as you know, and as you have seen in the different disaster scenarios that you serve, that chip on people's shoulder, knowing that not everything is temporary, that they don't know about the future, and that they don't have a long-term pathway. That has been something, the elephant in the room, that we all have had to live with until Malta came about. So we've been together in Qatar for some time, up until when we thought we would have more time. But that was without counting the US elections, which derailed or rained on our parade. What happened was that this Qatar scenario, we were hosted by the Qatar Foundation. Our students were able to continue their studies, and other students in Afghanistan were able to study online. So we had 200 students in Qatar, another 800 studying online in Afghanistan remotely. And they would, wherever we had faculty in Qatar that would match the students in Qatar, we would open the computer and teach in Afghanistan. So that was more or less okay until, and this Qatar project was funded by Qatar Fund for Development as well as USAID. And then, of course, in January 25 came to us another bombshell, which was the election and the slow demise of USAID. We received our first stop work order as an implementation partner of the US government we were asked to stop, completely cease anything on the 27th of January. I remember the dates because that to us was more devastating than the return of the Taliban. When the Taliban returned in August 21, at least we could teach online. In January, there was nothing that we could do. I couldn't even send an email, or it would be in defiance because I was USAID funded, or it would be thought to be in defiance of this stop work order and this presidential order. Therefore, between January 25 and June 25, the project was stopped, restarted, stopped, restarted again. And it became very clear to us that we would need to find long-term alternatives, otherwise everybody would be returned to Afghanistan. An added issue for us was that the university was attacked in 2016. Some of the students who were in Qatar had been wounded in the 2016 attack, and they definitely did not want to go back. Nobody in that cohort wanted to go back. So as we, started thinking, and as also USAID funded employee, and I was also impacted in my own job. So I was looking for alternative employment opportunities. And as I was doing that, I said to myself, I'm not going to go anywhere without those students. And so as I interviewed to lead other universities, Malta caught my attention because there was this opportunity to bring students in an English-speaking place with a long-term immigration pathway, and to have them finally finalize their studies with me. And that's what led to this particular project. So as I was appointed in Malta, I asked all the different donors that we had been working with to help us fund my relocation with more than 100 students. Now, we went to some of the donors, but as was really interestingly laid out by Professor Anna earlier, donors are what they are, and sometimes they don't necessarily implement the do no harm principle. So some of the donors that we went to see had already decided that this particular cohort of students would go to another country, Albania. And why? Because one of the middle people within this whole equation of donors taking a large overhead had contacts in Albania and wanted to place those students because they would get a cut. What's really interesting in this whole, supply chain, and I use this is not, I'm not trying to be offensive here, but sometimes when we've been, facing those realities, very often we have found that our students have been used as pawns and as goods, just as any other supply chain by different organizations. So as we were thinking about the future and what to do with them, and with the students, of course, immersed in those discussions, we realized that the many different organizations in the mix were using some of those parameters to, continue enriching themselves. That's when we became intent on illustrating and embodying those humanitarian principles that have just been mentioned, especially the ones revolving around localization agenda and agency. And in all the discussions we've had about our students' future, we have actually involved them. I'm speaking daily with the president of the student union, and every decision I take, every lead I pursue is in partnership with him. So those students were supposed to be sent to Albania. Then what I did as soon as I reached Malta, I issued admissions letter to them in Malta, and they all went one by one to the donor and said, don't decide what my future will be. I have an offer in Malta. I'm going to be able to, be granted a visa by the government. I have a long-term immigration pathway into the European Union, and I'm going to choose my future. And it took a lot of courage for those students to actually do that as a whole and to decide what they would do and where they would go as a whole. So we've had different cohorts for those for this Afghan student group funded by different programs. So one of them is the International Institute for Education. Another one is the Women's Scholarship Endowment, which is part of Texas A&M. And what's really important about that is that it is the only revived USAID program for higher education in Afghanistan under the current administration. So why did we choose Malta? Because Malta, I don't know how this is possible, actually have a historically low unemployment rate, which is at 2.6% overall. But actually in some sectors, it is a negative unemployment rate. Don't ask me how this happens. I have no idea, but it's there. So what this means is that there is a very strong skills shortage across all the sectors represented in the academic programs that I have listed earlier. And what this means is that our graduates, before they even graduate, are recruited by employers before usually in the last semester of their senior year. And what this means is that everybody is assured, as soon as they register into the university, is assured that they will have a job. And of course, this rising reliance on foreign workers is, again, a godsend, not just for our students, but for Malta as well. And again, this is where, we go back to the win-win element of this particular partnership. So, which allows then for our students to graduate from being a refugee to being a future professional. Again, what we really focus on in this project and the implementation of this project is their dignity at the center of everything, and which is, of course, connected very strongly to the core humanitarian principle. So as we have developed this, we have come across a lot of barriers. The political will here in Malta has always been there, always. The people, whoever I speak to about this particular project, are extremely, extremely welcoming. But there comes administrations and different administrations that sometimes are not talking to one another and sometimes are blocking the project. Why am I talking about this at this time? It's because the employment sector, the political sector, the employment sector, and the social fabric of the island have been extremely important in championing this particular project and saying, we need those kids those students for internships, to contribute to the job market. We need them in service learning. We need them within our community. And somehow the professional aspect of this particular project has had an impact also on the political decisions and their implementations in the past 6 weeks. As we speak today, we've just heard that finally the visas are approved, but it's taken us 7 weeks to get there. So for us, what's really important also is to keep our doors open for students who are learning with us online in Afghanistan. Our number of Afghan learners online is growing, and we think that it's extremely important as we have established a pipeline of Afghan students to come to Europe and to graduate out of being a refugee. We want to keep a window opened within Afghanistan in order to keep bringing students as within the next few years as a steady stream to Malta. How do we do this? We started teaching them online. We've got around 50 students studying online with us at the moment. This is going to grow. And we are really trying to, cater to some of the realities on the ground at the moment. I don't know if you've heard, but there has been a cut of fiber optic cuts in different provinces of Afghanistan in the past week, based on morality grounds as a decision of the emir, and this is something that we are reckoning with on a daily basis, and that we are adapting to as well in our delivery model. We continue as we did that, and as we transferred students as a cohort to Malta, then we came across a lot of quality assurance issues that we are negotiating with different accreditation bodies. It's not easy to do this and to implement this kind of endeavor, because by the time our students reach here, they will have transferred universities twice. And transfer regulations are very strict, and so we have to overcome other impossible administrative questions as they arrive. But we are continuing to work on that, and then we need to train the faculty on trauma-informed pedagogy and competency-based teaching, because we want to ensure that again our students are best prepared, but that the baggage that they come with is also taken into account as soon as they arrived. Those are some of the students that have already, before they even arrive in Malta, they're arriving next week, that have already been given some opportunities from the local business sector, and I really think that this shows. And this is an illustration of the tangible results that are not just possible, but that are already there as part of this endeavor. We've just mentioned with those cases, we've got really strong signals of impact for this next semester as well. We've established really strong partnerships as we did that with embassies, ministries, employers, NGOs, and also really interestingly, and not surprisingly, the Catholic Church, which is extremely important in Malta. It's a small island, but with 365 churches, and they are a really important part of what we are trying to do as well. So people say it takes a village, but for us it takes an island, and it's there. So the policy alignments that we have are also extremely relevant. The skills gap that exists with small and medium enterprises is being bridged through this project, and we will have some very important impact figures in the future, and so to be continued in terms of policy alignment. Of course, as I said, we've had a lot of obstacles that we have mitigated so far. Number one has been delays, also housing and cost pressures. You are probably aware that Malta is now the new Ibiza. Everybody wants to come to Malta. It's really interesting because when you take a plane to Malta, everybody's happy because they're coming for vacation. But this is creating also challenges for us in order to house all the students that are coming to the island. And we also, so those are all the risks that we are facing at the moment, but that we are working on and as a team. And again, the community is really intent on making this happen, and many of them, before we even mentioned what we were trying to do, which is to shift from the refugee narrative into the employability narrative have told us, we see those students as future contributors. Nobody sees them as refugees. So we've had to, and here we go back to do no harm. We've had to establish really strong safeguarding protocols, and so I'm not going to, I'm not going to go too much in depth into that because it's been mentioned earlier. We're trying to be very careful with media narratives, but also the media has been extremely important to us because as we started this project, and we knew that we would be encountering a lot of obstacles, we engaged the media right away. We went on CNN. We talked about the project with one of the future students who is going to be relocating to Malta, and that has had a strong impact also on the implementation of this particular endeavor, because somehow we wanted to make sure that we had this on the record, and that at every obstacle encountered, we would have this particular interview as a safeguard, and it's helped us a lot, a lot. All right, so so now we want to see how this is going to scale in the future. We believe that we have a model and that we have something that, for those of you who studied the poet Rumi, there's this famous quote from him: above the field of right and wrong, there is a space, and I will meet you there. And the way I see this is that, we are somewhere, this is an apolitical project. Going back to the humanitarian principles again, it's a completely neutral project funded by governments, but extremely neutral politically. And we want to make sure that we walk a fine line between the left that, has this very white savior complex of trying to help the poor refugees, and the right that doesn't want to see any Afghans on European soil. And somehow we keep walking this fine line. And I think that as we keep doing that, we are going to be able to scale this up and to really promote this as an economic endeavor that is going to perdurer, we say in French. So that's basically what we have so far. We will continue to monitor our results and to really document what we're doing as we go along. So right now we continue to call for partnerships. That's going to be our next media strategy, to move away the focus on the individuals into the long-term possibilities for the island. And this is how we are going to be articulating this in the future. So before we open the floor for probably a lot of questions or thoughts, I'd like to leave you with those 3 takeaways. The first one is that education is key to everything that we try to do after a crisis occurs, and as we are paving the way for long-term futures. That for me, displacement is also a strategy that can be utilized by governments that seek talent and that seek to develop their economy. There is nothing wrong with long-term economic development, and I think that as has been the case within our different narratives, we really want displacement to be an asset and not just a burden. That is within the political narrative of host countries. And again, we are very pragmatic ready to scale, but definitely not political. So I'm going to stop it there, stop sharing, and hopefully start the discussion. Over to you. And let me see if there are any questions in the chat. Oh, Yameogo Isaka, I see a question from you. Please go ahead. I cannot hear you.
Is there any questions from audience? We would like to have your interactions with the speaker. Unmute all. Please unmute all. Let us see.
We have a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's from Rusum. Navigating donors' interest and strategy is very key. How do you go about it? So, for us, what has been extremely what we have leveraged in this particular project has been the fact that our students were already outside of Afghanistan, that they had been promised a lot. All those students were supposed to go to the United States on P1 visas, which meant that, you know, as the Trump administration acceded power, this no longer was a possibility. So somehow, what we've leveraged, is not, we haven't created donors' interest, but we have solved a problem for donors together with the students, you know, who were the problem, because they were stranded somewhere in between different countries. In the future, as we continue to and we try to scale this, we're going to be again solving a problem, but the problem is not going to be the students. They're going to be the solution, and the problem is going to be employment or talent gaps within the job sector in Malta and other parts of Europe. So what we're doing now is starting to partner with other European countries and professional sectors to establish a database of sectors that are in tension and that need qualified workforce. The German government, the energy sector, for instance, in Germany, is actively recruiting some of those students. So the cohort that we have in Oman at the moment, so we're moving the Qatar students first, but then we have another cohort in Oman. Those ones, that cohort is going to be divided between Malta and Germany. And in Germany, they're going to be hosted by the energy sector. So again, that, you know, private education, private partnership is extremely important, and is creating this opportunity. So that's how we navigate donors' interest, by again solving a problem for them and telling them exactly how we can implement that. Now, there's another question. What are best practices for evaluating the impact of educational interventions on poverty reduction and conflict prevention? So that's a good question. I don't really, I haven't really looked into this yet. This is definitely something that we're going to be needing for, you know, to make a case for future iterations of this project. And I think for me, it's not just going to be unemployment figures. It's also going to be the employment rates of our graduates, and the rate also of persistence within this particular country. We will see who finds employment right away, who finds employment when they're still a senior student, and then how long they stay in Malta and where they move after that, and do they find employment within their sector, etc. What we also want to look into is the opportunities for remote work for women who are still based in Afghanistan and who are studying with us, especially in fields such as cybersecurity, data science, and fields that are also providing more economic opportunities for them. And Sharif, thank you so much for your kind words, and we will scale this up. And I really hope this is the beginning of an amazing project for everyone in Afghanistan. And I really want to stress that we are standing shoulder to shoulder, and we're not forgetting. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, and women are concerned, to me, they are at the ground zero of something really bad that's happening for humanity, gender apartheid. It is being codified under international law at the moment. It is going to become much more than a crime against humanity. It's going to be something specific. And there are a lot of interlocutors working on this at the moment. And I think that by helping Afghan women through this gender apartheid, we are going to be setting the grounds for to prevent future such occurrences. So this is basically helping the whole world. Well, that's what I'm trying to say. By helping women, Afghan women right now facing this issue, we are helping the whole world. Thank you so much.
Professor, can I ask my question now?
Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. My question is about what, excuse me, I'm French speaking from Burkina Faso, so my English is not so perfect. What basic resilience strategy would you advise to a local association who have very limited funds and the resources that they could have from, other NGOs are now very short, just because of the political orientation of the leaders? We are here in Burkina Faso in Sahel region, and as you know, many of the projects, who were finishing didn't, relaunch another project to continue the activity in some areas because it is sometimes difficulty of access. And now for a local school or a local NGO who is working, has no really found what resilience strategy can you advise if possible? Basic really resilience strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. So if I understood your question well, you have been also impacted in Burkina Faso by the cuts, and you're asking about resilience strategies locally. Is that correct?
Yes, not myself, but the student I'm helping are encountering this problem that I'm trying to help them.
Okay, so I think from the number one factor that has allowed us to find solutions tailored specifically to what we've encountered because of those funding cuts has been listening to our students and to who were our beneficiaries. And for me, the first the best lesson learned from this particular endeavor in comparison to other movements or other endeavors that we had been part of in the past has been to bring them to the table as we were developing this project and work with them on every solution. That's been key. And I think for me, I cannot tell you what solutions can be found for one particular problem, but involving everybody in problem solving for to mitigate the crisis that has been faced has been the most important. I'll give you one example. Okay, when the first stop work order occurred, the group of students who were in Oman So we were told, us in Qatar, because we were part of another project which was a little more intricate, we were told, do not speak to the media, do not utter a word, don't even answer an email, don't do anything. And just, you can barely speak to one another, but some people weren't even supposed to be in the office. We were completely paralyzed. What the students in Oman could do for us at this time is to say out loud and to, they actually contacted the BBC. The BBC did a whole article on them and what they were facing. And they could say out loud what we couldn't. So the beneficiaries actually helped the project be revived. After this BBC story, there was a lot of lobbying happening on the Hill in the US and Capitol Hill, and the project was revived, which was something completely unheard of and something that nobody was actually hoping would happen. So, going back to involving everyone and sometimes leveraging people when you're paralyzed due to a funding cut can help. So I hope I answered your question.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, anyone else?
All right, thank you. My name is Robert Bongomin. I work in Sudan. Yeah, I have been thinking within me, considering the conflicts that happens in many parts of the world, Afghanistan, and then part of Africa. Yeah, I know the aims of these institutions is to equip students, humanitarian workers, to really, provide humanitarian services within the conflict settings. Is there a way possibly the institutions possibly influence and, as they teach students, so that this student becomes advocates for peace, possibly instead of, a lot of disagreement through firearms, armed conflict, and many others. I don't know how to put it, but I was thinking at the strategic level or higher level, the warring parties. Is there any way, the advocates, I know it is happening, but can it be done possibly in a more serious way in terms of talking to the warring parties at the strategic level? Because there's so many armed conflict happenings all over the world. Yeah, for example, Sudan, where I am, and many others. Yeah, this is just my concern. I've just been thinking. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think advocacy is, advocacy is key to what we do. The problem is the timing. So advocacy as a skill, I think, is a cornerstone element of what we do as humanitarian workers and what we can develop within our student population and also within, and then going back to the previous question, within our, not within, in partnership with beneficiaries. If we all have a common line and we all look in the same direction, we have something in common to advocate for, and those are there are particular skills that exist. At the same time, it's all about the timing. It's all about also, going back to this principle of do no harm. Who do we put in front of the issue, and who do we make sure is not going to be harmed because of the advocacy? Because it's not just, being the advocate yourself, but it's also who do you advocate for, what for, and is it going to have an impact on this particular group of people? So for me, it's about skills. It's about understanding your surrounding enough to know when to adopt those skills. But for me, again, this is, I think, the number one recipe for sustainable conflict resolution and for, and again, we go back to the importance of dialogue. Conflict starts when people stop talking. And having the possibility to have those, to have those disagreements and pull through is, I think, the most important, and why advocacy is so strong. And I mean, there are many institutes that that teach those skills, and I think that from what I've seen within our own student body, going back to this particular project, sometimes they very often they have been at the forefront of those endeavors, and they have even taught us how to advocate from their own perspectives. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, you answered. Thank you very much. Yeah, I have asked this question because I was just imagining many things happens in the world, and these are things that could be solved through dialogue other than the bloodsheds. The people who would be doing it, but possibly the capacity when it starts from the grassroots, and then maybe this kind of meetings when possibly in future there are some people who play some roles within the governments of these places where there are conflicts. If they're invited, whether online meeting and this kind of thing, don't you think that could be the beginning? You are invited and all that, this kind of just talking, and then possibly it starts from there, and somebody would be asked, why must you shed blood? What are the issues that cannot be solved without? Maybe I'm just thinking. Thank you.
No, absolutely. Thank you. You're on the right path. Anyone else?
Yes, I'm chemist Joel. I'm from South Sudan, and I have two questions. And one is in the aspect of people or students who are not able to continue because they didn't have access to formal education. How do we, in this line, how do we support this kind of people, especially in conflict or in fragile situations? And then secondly, we also have challenges in areas where some of these people, the learners that we are training, already have had challenges with they have been put into some kind of stress or stigma because during these conflicts, like for example in my country, there are others have, like women have gone through sexual exploitation. How do we support these people? Because before you give a skill, these people must be psychologically strong. So how are we supporting these people? Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of bridging into formal education, I think that online learning is extremely important. There are some programs that exist to level up students who have lost the opportunity of finishing their studies, continuing their learning before they could get their certificate. So there are some bridge programs that exist. The first one that I think about, it's offered by Bard College in New York. It's in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya, but it's actually all over. It's all over the continent, and it's called the Osun Connected Hubs, and it's a specific online learning, bridging and helping people finish their studies in order to get to the next level and start university. So there are a lot of programs that exist, and I think that enhancing them and using connected education, I think, is key to what we're trying to do. So that's one. In terms of supporting, you're absolutely right. I think that pulling forward and finding solutions sometimes is a matter of survival more than coming in an iterative way. After you are psychologically healed, then you can move forward and think about something else, etc., etc. It's part of a whole. Survival means that you're going to pull forward and try to latch onto an opportunity, and then think about healing yourself later. From my understanding, in what we do and in this particular project, we place mental health at the forefront of what we do by using trauma-informed pedagogy, trauma-informed also interaction, which is why I'm in touch with my students every day with the same information. Right now, the men are waiting for their visas and it's difficult. And they're calling me. I've got different focal points calling me every day. And by being in this dialogue, I'm able to reduce the level of anxiety on a daily level. That's something that in our interactions, we also must put forward. And, so we've got conflict, I forgot the name. It's with the giraffe, it's nonviolent communication. So using nonviolent communication in the way we address one another, using trauma-informed communication, and ensuring that, it's not just about the destination or the outcome that we want, but that every process that we use is as holistic as possible. That's how we try to approach it as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, is there any other question? Shall we move ahead?
Thank you all for your time. It was really a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to meet all of you. My thanks to the organizers and to our partner universities working with the Calais Institute. And back to you. And stay tuned. I hope that we'll have great news to share soon. Bye bye.
Right. Thank you so much, Professor Fontan, sharing those powerful insights, experience from Dalaman, Afghanistan to Cospico, Malta.
Thank you.
In this occasion, I would like to invite Mr. Rudy Martins to speak on the education for sustainable development. So before we go with Dr. Martins, I would like to request Ms. Sarah Benjamin to introduce her to the audience, and we shall proceed.
It is my great privilege to introduce our distinguished speaker, Mr. Rudy Martinez, a seasoned humanitarian and development professional whose work lies at the intersection of education, climate change adaptation, and sustainable development. Mr. Martinez's presentation, Education for Sustainability, Building Capacities for Climate Change Adaptation and Lasting Impact, highlights how education and vocational training can become powerful levers for resilience in fragile contexts where poverty, conflict, and environmental pressures intersect. Drawing from his experience with Medicines du Monde, he has shown how training frontline health workers with climate sensitive skills can keep health systems functional even amidst heat waves, floods, and fragile infrastructure. His work demonstrates that education is not supplementary but essential for survival and adaptation. From vocational training for youth in post disaster Haiti to green entrepreneurship programs in Latin America and blue economy initiatives in coastal Africa, his projects have empowered communities to adopt sustainably, generate livelihoods, and strengthen resilience against recurrent shocks. At the core of his vision is the belief that education must be practical, inclusive, and locally grounded, integrating women, youth, and marginalized groups while aligning training with both employment and systematic resilience. His work underscores how knowledge, when connected to livelihoods, amplifies both economic opportunity and environmental sustainability. Today, we are honored to welcome a practitioner, scholar whose field experience and vision for education as resilience inspires not just adaptation but transformation. Please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Mr. Rudy Martinez. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you just confirm before starting that you can hear me perfectly?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We can hear.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm going to share my screen, and I will come back to the camera by the end of my presentation. So I'm going right now. Let me know if it's working. Can you see my
Yes,
my
sir.
presentation? Yeah.
It is visible.
Excellent. Okay. Good morning, good afternoon. Thank you very much to all of you, and in particular to Kalu Institute, who I'm working and having a different intervention along the year to be part of this presentation. I'm very glad to share you this reflection today. We will be talking under the title Education for Sustainability, Building Capacity for Climate Change, Adaptation and Lasting Impact. The idea here is to talk about humanitarian and fragile contexts and see how education and vocational training become powerful catalysts of resilience, enabling vulnerable communities not just to survive shocks, but also to transform their relationship with climate risk. Today, my goal is to walk you through, I will say, six different steps. The first one will be focused on the institutional framework that anchor education in climate action. The second one will go through real crises that are unfolding around the world, and especially in the context we all know, but we have been working on in the last years, and I'm still working right now. Third step will go to talk about the ways that I consider education can intervene meaningfully. And later on, we will go to specific issues and concrete field examples and evidence to illustrate what we will have seen in the previous point. And finally, the last two issues will be, on one side, lessons, risk, and strategic recommendation that we can address. And the last one, I would say, like a call to action to reimagine and to reorientate in some way humanitarian development cooperation through an educational lens. I will try to talk about between 30 and 40 minutes, more or less. And later on, I will be very happy to answer to all questions and all comments that can raise. So I will start with the first point related to normative and institutional frameworks. To root our reflection today, I would like to start connecting to key documents or key concepts that elevate education into the climate agenda. And for me, the first one cannot be other than the Action for Climate Empowerment and through UNFCCC, and mainly Article 12 of the Paris Agreement that says that parties should take measures to enhance climate change education, training, public awareness, and participation. And for me, this is what today, and mainly for this presentation, what is embodied in Action for Climate Empowerment. I understand that ACE frames education and related elements as essential for long-term climate literacy, planning, and agency, and not simply awareness. The second one I would like to highlight is linked to UNESCO and climate change education. In UNESCO's Climate Change Education for Sustainable Development initiative, emphasized that education must help in a specific way and concretely to reinforce the scientific, mitigation, and adaptation capacities of countries and communities that are most vulnerable to the effects of climate change. In fact, if we go to UNESCO report in 2021, they measured how the 100 countries are integrating climate change topics into curricula and teacher training, a sign that many systems are starting already to take these issues seriously. I hope so that in the future it will be the same, but let's say that slowly there is a movement that shows that we are going this way. Also in the UNESCO IADB brief, Education and Climate Change and How to Develop Skills for Climate Action at School Age, they note that climate change places new demands on education systems. In fact, they identify the following challenges, including how ready students are to cope with climate change, the level of resilience of education systems, and climate sustainability strategy in the provision of education services. And the third part is linked to interagency standing committee for the humanitarian side. And in the key messages on the climate crisis, they insist that the climate crisis is also a humanitarian crisis. And I think this is breaking a lot of way to understand what we are talking about when we talk about climate change and their impacts. They also say that shocks threaten the lives, health, livelihoods, and well-being of people around the world. Also saying that climate change compounds existing vulnerabilities, undermining development gains that can threaten achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals. These messages for me are pushing humanitarian actors to see climate not as an external or a separate issue, but as an integral to their mission of protection and resilience. And finally, and obviously, I will not be able to close this first part of the presentation on global framework, not talking about SDGs themselves, and in particular SDG number 13, that in its target 13.3 explicitly includes the following: improve education, awareness raising, and human and institutional capacity on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction, and early warning. As a consequence, I understand that education is not an afterthought. It is completely included in global sustainable development planning, and it's how we should consider it. On the following point, I would like to talk about current humanitarian climate crisis contexts. Some of them I've been working the like 2-3 years. Some of them are still of reality and news today. So let's try to turn from theory to reality. How climate and environmental change are intensifying humanitarian crises on one side, and in particular in geographies familiar to our work. I will talk about 5 different specific places. Haiti, South Sudan. I will talk about Central America, where I can mix Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua experiences. I will talk about also Paraguay, and finally a little bit of Middle East. In the case of Haiti, I would say that extreme storms and hurricanes are becoming more frequent and intense. For example, after recent hurricanes, schools have been destroyed or flooded, cutting months of instruction. In the case of South Sudan, increased variability in rainfall, flooding, and desertification in parts of the country have disrupted agriculture, exacerbated food insecurity, and triggered internal displacement. This is for South Sudan, but also you will certainly recognize some issues that are touching a lot of more countries that you all know. In the case of Central America, recurrent hurricanes, prolonged droughts, like in the dry corridor, for example, and flooding lead to crop failures, migration, and school dropout. In my case also, and through my experience in Paraguay, I've seen how flood events and irregular rainfall patterns affect rural farming communities who under-grid use livelihoods, school schedules, and infrastructures suffer disruption from time to time. And finally, in the case of Middle East, I would say that water stress, desertification, and extreme heat undermine rural livelihoods. Refugee camps and informal settlements are especially fragile environmentally, and that's why I included it here, because I think it's also very of a present issue that we have to think about when we are looking at the Middle East right now. In these settings, education systems are vulnerable on two different fronts, I would say. From one side, infrastructure is damaged, teacher absenteeism rises, and displacements interrupts schooling. But also the communities that host displaced people face their own climate stress. So if we go to UNESCO warning regarding climate change and associated displacement, they are saying that exacerbate existing educational inequalities and barriers to education, particularly among already vulnerable population. In fact, the UNESCO Global Education Monitoring Report flagged that children in some regions may lose up to 1.5 years of schooling due to extreme heat and school closures. Also, a systematic review on hazard-induced school disruption also finds that multi-hazard events often disrupt school operation, damage infrastructure, and lead to dropout, especially in low resources contexts. These dynamics by the end show that climate change is not abstract. It's deeply structural to how education and human development more broadly gets impaired in crisis context. So if we go and move on the role of education and capacity building, here we'll go through different issues. I will start with education as resilience infrastructure. And given those realities we've seen, how can education and training intervene strategically? This is one of the questions that we should try to answer. What are the mechanisms and pathways by which education for sustainability can become a lever for adaptation? So thinking about education as resilience infrastructure, I would say that rather than seeing education as a service disrupted by climate influence, we can try to see it as resilience infrastructure, a platform that allow us to build capacities, to build social cohesion, to work on local knowledge and adaptive mindsets. And I will say that three specific points are key in this area. The first one is that curricula that integrate climate risk are key element. I mean, we need to understand local hazards. We need to understand them in order to be able to build and to design the proper and correct adaptation strategies. On the other side, and the second point is that we need teachers to be trained in climate awareness, in inclusion, and anticipatory planning to also be able to respond to these climate risks. And finally, we need to build and to be able to build a community school links in order that make sure that schools are safe spaces, that we have early warning systems that can help us to detect the problems, and to use this link between community and school in order to make schools as knowledge hubs to work on. When we go to vocational and technical training oriented to adaptation, I will say that, in particularly in fragile and humanitarian settings, I will say that vocational training can focus on sectors that are climate relevant. And I've decided to illustrate with 4 of them, which are not the only one, but I would say that maybe based on my experience, the most important. The first one is sustainable agriculture and agroecology, thinking about drought resilient crops and water conservation. The second one is linked to energy, and in particular to renewable energy, to off-grid solar and energy efficiency, and especially in remote settlement or displaced communities. On the third point, I will talk about water management, sanitation, and ecosystem restoration. As I understand that there is a very important role on the local adaptation with these issues. And finally, I will talk about initiatives linked to green economy or blue economy, depending on the place we are talking about. And linked to that, for example, I'm thinking about fisheries in when we are talking about blue economy, or sustainable forestry when we are talking about green economy initiatives. Such training can link directly with income generation, which means jobs, and simultaneously reduce vulnerability. So this is why I believe that vocational and technical training are clearly oriented to adaptation. When we come to talk about inclusion, equity, gender, and marginalized group, I will say that it's essential, and I can't imagine talking about an intervention without doing it this way, but it is essential to take into account women, youth, indigenous groups, persons with disabilities, in order to make them part of the intervention, but also to take into account one of the key elements for me when we are talking about this approach, that these groups are in general and often disproportionately affected by the climate change impacts, and it's still usual to see them very underrepresented in the training and the decision-making systems. So that's why I believe it's key at this stage to see how we have to include women, youth, indigenous groups, and also persons with disabilities in the whole process when we are working together to talk about training and education. In fact, for me, education must adopt a gender-responsive and inclusive pedagogy and ensure that access for marginalized groups are ensured. For example, we can argue that quality climate change education is gender empowering, is intersectional, and is also transdisciplinary. When we come to system resilience and institutional capacity, I will say that education systems themselves must transform and must become more resilient. And to do so, I believe that we have 4 pillars we can work on. First one is the climate proofing infrastructures, food-proof classrooms, safe shelters, and so on. Another one is contingency planning, modular schedules, remote learning backups, and so on. The third one is linked to maintenance, and I would say budgeting properly the maintenance, the recovery and adaptation to these impacts. And finally, I will say, and I will talk about collaboration at a cross-sectoral level. And I'm thinking about education, disaster risk reduction, environment, and certainly other sectors. Related to knowledge feedback loops and local innovation, I would say that also education should not be one way. Systems must empty feedback loops, and that's why I believe that communities share local climate change knowledge that is key to understand what is happening and key to understand and to be able to design properly the response. On the other side, the students and the teachers co-produce adaptation solution or can co-produce adaptation solution that are properly designed and referred to the realities they know firsthand. And finally, data and monitoring inform curricular evolution. In this way, education becomes not just a transmission of knowledge, but a site of innovation and co-creation in adaptation. You've seen that I'm talking about adaptation mainly because I believe this is a place where we have to be more active in this kind of context. It's not the only one, but I believe that this is where we have to focus specifically. So let's try to illustrate with some concrete cases from the regions I've mentioned before to understand better what we can do or what is already done and starting to be built by the different actors. And I will start with Haiti. I've been working there for a long time, and I would say that we cannot ignore that after major hurricanes, education partners have supported school in a box and modular classroom, but some NGO went further, offering technical courses in renewable energy installation, or for example, on climate resilient masonry, which are solutions that are coming from the place where we have a big impact, but also designed and co-created, as we were mentioning before. This help youth gain local green skills on one side, but also on the other side, this is contributing to reconstruction after the disaster. So I believe that it's quite a good example to see how we are able to mix reconstruction and gaining skills at local level. In Central America, for example, and here I'm talking and I'm thinking mainly in Honduras, Guatemala, Nicaragua. In the dry corridor, we've seen that NGO have supported agroforestry training, drought-tolerant seed selection, and also water capture techniques. Some of these programs link youth to microloan or to cooperative, and allowing this to connect training to tangible economic options. And I think here we have an important and a different approach to the response that we are addressing. In the first one, we are trying to give skills. And in the second one, even if we are talking about the skills, we are also talking about the economic option that are being possible through these interventions. In South Sudan, for example, or in Paraguay, I will talk about water harvesting, climate resilient crops, environmental modules in technical schools, and so on. For example, in South Sudan, in localized projects, we've seen that how vocational training in water harvesting or borehole maintenance or climate resilient crop practices have been piloted. These efforts showed how we can help displaced youth integrate into livelihood networks, which is not a trivial question. And also the challenges remaining are scaling, sustaining, and linking to local markets. I will come back to this point later on when we'll be concluding about the pilot programs. On Paraguay, for example, we've seen how some rural development actors have integrated environmental education modules into technical schools, combining agronomy, water management, and local ecosystem restoration. And these efforts aim to empower youth as agents of local resilience and land care, which is for me also a key point to make sure that youth is being part of the solution and is from now and from the very beginning included as an actor and a key actor in order to talk about resilience and adaptation. And finally, if we go to Middle East, I would like to share with you some reflection and some experience in semi-arid or water-stressed zones. Also refugee hosting regions or rural communities that have experimented with curriculum modules around water conservation, about solar irrigation, and also about resilient building design. And I'm thinking in Jordan and Lebanon mainly, that even if it's a still nascent issue, it's promising, and I believe it's starting to give a new approach to the kind of intervention and response that can be done in these areas. So if we go to the lessons across these field cases, I will start maybe with the first one linked to the localization. Localization matters, means that adaptation curricula must be contextually relevant. We have to adapt it properly to soil reality, to rainfall reality, and to other types reality. The other one is that market linkage is critical. Skills training are fine, but if we are doing that without a link to jobs or to micro-enterprise weakens outcomes later on, because we are just doing part of the process. Skills are okay, but we have to link them properly to jobs or to micro-enterprise to make sure that it's going to be sustainable and it's making sense. The third point is that sustained support is clearly better than short pilots. I'm very keen on pilots, but pilots are fine if we are always thinking on how to fund them later and how can we make sure that they are going to be sustainable in the future. I mean, pilots to develop and to create knowledge is interesting, but this knowledge is not enough. In our case, and in this context, we are talking about people, we are talking about day-to-day lives, and we need to, furthermore, the knowledge, we need to make sure that what we are piloting is going to be adjusted, but is going to be sustainable later on. And finally, I would say that flexibility and modularity is also one of the big issues. If we are looking at crisis settings, the trainings that we are offering must be modular and adaptable to interruptions, because it's one of the points that we have to take care when we are giving this kind of trainings. And finally, if we go to lesson, risks, and best practices in general, I will try to summarize in 5 key lessons or caution points that I consider that are very important. The risk of education overburden. We don't have to expect schools alone to solve all climate issues, obviously, but synergy with health, livelihood, infrastructure sectors are clearly needed, and this is how we can be able to have a comprehensive approach and a comprehensive solution to the problem linked to climate issues. On the other side, I would say that equity trade-offs in the way that adaptation training may favor young men more easily, explicit design needed to include women, to include minorities and displaced people. Financial sustainability, I think it's one of the key points in my understanding and from what I'm seeing in the field day after day, mainly on climate sensitive response. I'm clearly defending the fact that we have to avoid pilot projects that collapse. We have to go on with pilot projects, but we have to adjust them in order to make and to build long-term funding and long-term sustainable projects, which is sometimes a bit difficult because we are talking about climate change issues, which are happening on a long timeline, let's say. We are talking about humanitarian crises that are trying to be solved on a very short timeline. And in the middle, we have these pilots that are trying to create some impacts in economy and on skills and on training skills and educational skills that are also on a long-term or mid-term timeline, which is sometimes a bit confusing and difficult to ensure that the proposal that we are offering when we are regarding crisis through a lens of climate is quite difficult to make it align with the response usually taken. We have to avoid greenwashing, and it's not interesting to have a curriculum which is labeled as climate and that's it, because so many curriculum labeled as climate are not robust, and we need to have a curriculum which is of quality, which is with scientific grounding, and where local relevance matter. I mean that we have to make sure that we have enough information on the local reality to make sure that what we are building in the curriculum is answering to a real approach and the reality of the people that we are going to train. And finally, I will say that adaptive monitoring and learning is also key. We have to track what works to allow us iteration, and I know it's not always easy to convince the donors in this way, and to integrate community feedback also in the work we are dealing with to make sure that we are using a user experience or user experience feedback to make sure that our solutions are the correct one and well aligned with the reality and the needs of the people. So I would say that linked to these lessons, we can finally talk about 5 maybe best practice to adopt. One is the co-designs with communities and learners, and I think it's quite interesting to think this way from the very beginning. Later on, I will talk about building blended models, in-person plus remote for contingency. The third one, I would say, is to make sure that gender inclusion and conflict sensitivity are taken into account from the very start of our response. On the fourth place, I would say that training to local markets or micro enterprise must be linked with the trainings. We cannot design a training that is not linked to local market or micro enterprise when we are talking about obviously this kind of trainings. We are talking about skills trainings, and we need to make them aligned, but also linked to the reality of the market. And finally, I would say that it's important to see how we can articulate partners across several sectors. We don't have to see climate response as independent, and we have to cross it with educational sectors, environmental sectors, disaster risk reduction sector, livelihoods, and so on. So, as a conclusion and a call to action, I would say that we started with our title saying education for sustainability, building capacity for climate change, adaptation, and lasting impact. I think I've been trying to share with you that in context of fragility and crisis, education and training are not peripheral. I believe they are central enablers of resilience and transformation. I invite you to rethink how we can structure cooperation, humanitarian programming, and development in the climate era. And specifically, I believe that we have to prioritize education-led resilience as a systemic pillar, which is not clear and not easy today, because not all the voices are going this way. We have to fund not just short-term education in emergency, but we have to think about long-term climate-adapted educational ecosystems. We have to ensure that education policy, climate policy, humanitarian action, and development strategy are integrated all together. And we have to think about elevate and empower women leaders in education and climate, recognizing that their voices and agency are indispensable. So to close, I would say that I wanted to close with this quote. I like very much. Education does not change the world. Education changes people, and people are the one that change the world. I'm sure that this conviction rings all the more true when we frame education as a tool, not just for incremental change, but for sustaining human life amid climate challenges. So I think it's a good, I hope for you also, it's a good quote for me to close here. I'm coming back to my camera, and I will be happy to answer any question you have, and I hope the presentation was interesting.
Right. Is there any questions from the audience? If you have any questions, we can unmute you, or you can write in the chat box. So seeing none. Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughtful presentation.
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, please.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I want to thank the presenter for the elaborate presentation. And however, my question is in line with how do we reach conflict actors who had been in the forefront in the loss of biodiversity and causing climate change. In areas that are very fragile, we find that conflict actors use the environment as a source of financing such conflicts. And in such cases, we need to go beyond the classroom so that these people are reached with messages and these people are reached, their capacity is built. We need to advocate for them to understand that the climate also, the environment plays a very important role, not only in financing their conflict, but also the livelihoods of the people. Thank you.
I will try to answer to your question, saying that my opinion is that as I was trying also to explain during the presentation, when we are talking about climate change responses, I will say that we need to be to cross with a lot of factors, a lot of partners. And we need to understand that climate change and environmental issues are not to be taken as an independent or different issue. They should be integrated in all the decision and all the actors that are surrounding us. I'm saying that because I will try not to talk about cross-cutting climate change issues, because when we try to cross-cut, sometimes we are losing the final objective. But I would say that from the very beginning, and we have to make sure that everybody is understanding that when we talk about climate change and environmental issues, we are trying to have a comprehensive approach to everything. Everything is including and should include climate change. And when we are talking about climate change, we are including all the issues. So I understand that in a very fragile context, sometimes it's difficult to make that to be understood. And that's why I believe that we have to go very step by step and to make sure that the messages and the concepts are well understood. We are not talking about something different, something separated. We are just talking about something that is completely included in the rest of the settlement's life or the community life. And it is linked to agriculture, it is linked to health, it is linked to social relations, it is linked to everything in the community. So I will try to think about a very comprehensive approach. I understand that it's very difficult, and sometimes we don't have the capacity to do so. But I will try to insist on that point to make sure that it's properly understood, and everything which is done under climate change umbrella is understood as a comprehensive approach and comprehensive response to the community.
Is there any other questions? Right. So I'm
seeing a question in the chat about saying that in the body of knowledge there are more than 2,000 edible wildlife plants yet to be domesticated as part of climate adaptation or mitigation in enhancing food security, sovereignty. What should be the way to go? It's interesting because most of the time, maybe in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I would say that most of the intervention were designed very sometimes far from the field and far from the reality. I believe that most of the intervention have been part of in the last years. We are trying to make sure that local knowledge is included in the response that is designed. And that's why I was talking about before co-create with the learners,
but also with the communities. And when we are talking about what you are mentioning here about the plants and other issues that have to be domesticated still, I think this is exactly the point we are trying to do. We are trying to make sure that the local knowledge is completely part of the answer, because the answer cannot be designed far from the field, far from the reality. And most of the time, the local communities have a local knowledge that is giving, I would say most of the part or always, a good answer to the problems. I mean, resilience most of the time is well developed at a local level, but we are not always in condition to show it and to give it the proper capacity it has. So I would say that it's a very important point that you are mentioning here, because I think we have to use local communities and local knowledge to help on the design of the solutions.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for your thoughtful presentation and your comprehensive analysis on the climate change and adoption in the conflict states, fragile conflict states. So it is a customary to extend the word of gratitude to those who made this event possible. Now, I would like to request Ms. Sarah Benjamin to propose the word of thanks, and we shall go and conclude today's program. Sarah, over to you.
Pleasant evening to one and all present here. As we come to the close of the technical session 2 of our international conference on the role of educational institutions as catalysts addressing poverty and mitigating conflict in fragile states, it is my privilege to deliver the vote of thanks. At the very outset, I extend our deepest gratitude to our Chief Patron, Professor Dr. N.K. Loknath, Honorable Vice Chancellor of the University of Mysore, and our patron, Srimati M.K. Savita, Registrar, University of Mysore, in their absence. Their constant encouragement, academic leadership, and institutional support have been instrumental in bringing this conference to life. I extend our sincere gratitude to our distinguished speakers of this session, Mr. Inigo Torres, for his reflections on the interlinkages between vocational training, economic growth, and peace building. Ms. Anna Argoiti for highlighting how knowledge in action builds the capacities of frontline workers where it matters the most. Professor Victoria Fontaine for her inspiring presentation on higher education as resilience through the case of Afghan students in Malta, and Mr. Rudy Martinez for his powerful insights on education for sustainability and climate change adaptation. Each of you has enriched this dialogue with valuable perspectives that will resonate with us long after this conference. A special note of gratitude to Professor Dr. M.S. Benjamin, Dean, Faculty of Law and Chairman, Department of Studies in Law, for his visionary leadership as the organizing secretary, and to Mr. Syed Kudrat Hashmi as the regional convener of this webinar for his tireless effort in planning and executing this event with great precision. Most importantly, we extend our sincere appreciation to the entire technical and media team